Hello everyone, we are going to talk about the design rules, guidelines and evaluation techniques. Here, we are supposed to learn the following topics. Before proceeding towards the very first one, which talks about the principles that support usability, we should be aware of the different design rules. So what are design rules in case of a user-centered design? When we are talking about the user-centered design, the main problem is that in the process, how to provide the designers with the ability to determine the usability consequences of the design decisions taken by them. So, the designers should be restricted to follow some rules which are called the design rules in order to increase the usability of the software product. As we know that designing is all for maximum usability is the main goal of any interaction design. Here, the design rules are categorized into two main types. The first one is the rules authority and the next one is generability. The rules authority is nothing but the one which indicates whether a rule is to be strictly followed or just suggested. Generability talks about whether the rule is generic or specific for limited applications. Rules also do vary in the level of abstraction. The types of design rules are further categorized into principles, standards, and guidelines. The principles are the ones with abstract design rules. They have low authority and have high generality. The standards are specific design rules with high authority and limited applications. The guidelines have lower authority with more general applications. This graph shows the increasing generality and increasing authority with respect to guidelines and standards. Now let's come towards the main part which talks about the principles which support usability. So what are principles? Those are nothing but the abstract design rules which can be applied to the design of an interactive system in order to promote its usability. Here, we'll now learn a collection of usability principles. They are broadly categorized into three types: learnability, flexibility, and robustness. Learnability is the ease with which new users can begin effective interaction and achieve maximal performance. Flexibility is the multiplicity of ways the user and system exchange information with. Robustness is the level of support provided to the user in determining successful achievement and assessment of goal-directed behavior. All these principles are further categorized into subcategories. So these major ones, learnability, flexibility, and robustness, are further categorized into subcategories as shown over here. We are going to learn all of them in depth. So these are the names of the principles of which are affecting learnability, the definition and the related principles. So let's start learning them one by one. So what's predictability? Predictability deals with future interactions. It considers some mental models and is a user-centered concept. Consider a mathematical puzzle with 3 or more numbers as shown over here given to you and asked to predict the next number in the sequence. So the assumption is that there is a unique function or an algorithm or a pattern which we are going to follow. So we know that the function, but all you know are the results it provides from the first 3 calculations. The function is certainly deterministic. The test for you is to find out or predict the next number in the sequence given the first 3 numbers are in a sequence. Another form of predictability has to do with the user's ability to know which operations can be performed. So operational visibility refers to how the user is shown the availability of operations that can be performed. Next, synthesizability. When an operation changes some aspect of internal state, it is important that the change is seen by the user. So, the principle of honesty relates to the ability of the user interface to provide an observable and informative account of such change. So, it helps in assessing the effect of past actions. At least the notification should appear eventually after explicit user directives to make the change observable. It can come either immediately, requiring no further interaction to be initiated by the user. So, there are two types of honesty, immediate or eventual honesty. Two examples we can relate over here or compare over here. One is about a command language interface and the other one is a visual desktop interface for file management system. Here, the aim is to move a file from one directory to the other. In case of command language interface, we would say that the user needs to remember from which destination the file is being moved to the destination directory and needs to go and check back, is the file actually moved or is just simply copied. In case of visual desktop interface, we can say that because of the visual representation or the iconic representation, the file, while moving and being dragged and dropped from its original directory and placed in its destination directory, is visible. Here, the user is not needed to take any more efforts to assess the results of the move operation. So, it means that a visual desktop interface is providing us with immediate honesty. Another example of this immediate honesty over eventual honesty is, consider that there is a global search and replace operation in a word processor. So, the tendency of the user is to repeat words in a document. For example, the user types the without noticing the error. So, the user wants to proofread automatically and decides to replace globally all occurrences of the with the, as shown over here. So, in this case, the global search and replace function performs the substitution without revealing the changes made. So, a careless typing error is transformed into unacceptable grammar where the first the is replaced and the two the's are replaced and it has removed the article the from this particular sentence. The next subcategory of principles under learnability is familiarity. So, for a new user, the familiarity of an interactive system measures the correlation between the user's existing knowledge and the knowledge required for effective interaction. So, how guessable the software is. So, for example, when a word processor was originally introduced, the analogy between the word processor and a typewriter was intended to make the new technology more immediately accessible to those who had some knowledge of typewriters. Familiarity deals with a user's first impression of the system. Proceeding further, generalizability. So, here we can apply generalization to situations in which the user wants to apply the knowledge that helps achieve one particular goal to another situation where the goal is in some way similar. Generalizability can also be seen as a form of consistency. It can occur within the single application or across a variety of applications. For example, in case of a GUI where we are saying that a circle is drawn as a constraint form of ellipse, we would also want the user to generalize that a square can be drawn as a constraint form of rectangle. An example of generalizability across a variety of applications can be seen in multi-windowing system that attempts to copy, paste or cut operations to all applications in the same way, with varying degrees of success. Consistency. We all know that the user relies on a consistent interface, so we are always forced or urged to be consistent. The next principle, the broadly categorized principle is flexibility. So the subcategories of that are mentioned over here with the definitions and the related principles. Let's see them one by one in depth. Dialogue initiative. When considering the interaction between a user and a system as a dialogue between the partners, it is important to consider which partner has the initiative in the conversation. The system can initiate all the dialogues, so the users simply responds through the request for information. This type of dialogue is system preemptive. For example, a model dialog box prohibits the user from interacting with the system in a way that does not direct input to the box. And on the other hand, we would say that the user may be entirely free to initiate any action towards the system, in which case the dialogue is user preemptive. The system may control the dialogue to the extent that it prohibits the user from initiating any other desired communication concerning the current task or some other task the user would like to perform. From the user's perspective, we would say that a system-driven interaction hinders flexibility, whereas a user-driven interaction favors it. Even though system preemptive dialogue is not desirable in general, some situations may require it. Multi-threading. A thread of a dialogue is coherent subset of the dialogue. In a user system dialogue, a thread can be a part of the dialogue that relates to a given user task. Multimodality of a dialogue is related to multi-threading. So, a windowing system naturally supports a multi-threaded dialogue that is interleaved amongst a number of overlapping tasks. Each window can represent a different task, for example, a text editing or file management application. Task migrability. It is nothing but passing the responsibility for task execution between the user and the system. For example, in case of spell checking a paper is a good example for the need for task migrability. Equipped with a dictionary, you are perfectly able to check your spelling by reading through the entire paper and correcting the mistakes as you spot them. Substitutivity. It requires that equivalent values can be substituted for each other. In a drawing package, for example, the user may draw a line by direct manipulation and the system would compute the length of the line. Or conversely, the user may specify the line coordinates and the system would be able to draw the line. Both means of manipulating the line are equally important and must be equally available. Customizability deals with modifiability of the user interface either by the user, which can be termed as adaptability, or by the system, which can be called as adaptivity. Adaptivity refers to automatic customization of the user's interface by the system, and adaptability refers to the user's ability to adjust the form of input and output. These are the subcategory of principles which affect robustness: observability, recoverability, responsiveness, and task conformance. Observability is the ability of a user to evaluate the internal state of the system from its perceivable representation. It can be further classified into browsability, defaults, reachability, persistence, and operational visibility. Recoverability is the ability of the user to take corrective action once an error has been recognized. It can be in forward direction or in backward direction. The example can be undo operation is an example of backward recovery, and in case of forward recovery, you can say that a house built up from cards, if it is broken, there is no other option to rebuild it again other than anything else. Responsiveness is how the user perceives the rate of communication with the system. It basically depends on the response time. Task conformance is the degree to which the system services support all of the users. It depends on task completeness and task adequacy. Thank you.